When we talk about multiplying with fractions, we're either talking about multiplying a fraction times a whole number, like you'll see circled here in green, or we're talking about multiplying a fraction times another fraction, which you'll see circled in orange. When we're talking about multiplying a fraction times a whole number, we're talking about taking a part of a whole. So the 1/2 is the part, and the 4 is the whole we are taking some part of. When we instead talk about a fraction times a fraction, we're talking about then a part of a part. So we've already have some part of a whole, and we're taking an even smaller part of that. That is, okay, if this fraction is less than 1. Sometimes if we're dealing with fractions more than 1, right, we're not taking a part of something, we're taking one of it plus some more. Most of what we're dealing with today is going to be fractions less than 1, but we may see a few that are improper. Let's take a look at this first example, 1/2 times 4. We can rewrite this and think about it as 1/2 of 4. When we're working with fractions, we can use the word of to replace the word times when we read this out loud, right? This says 1/2 times 4. We can say 1/2 of 4. They mean the same thing mathematically. Well, if I had 4 things, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and I wanted to take half of them, how many would that be? There, I've split them. Okay, so half of them would be 2. 2 is 1/2 of 4. So 2 equals 1/2 times 4. Our next example says 2/3 times 9. And remember, we can think of that as 2/3 of 9. Well, if I have 9 things, I'm going to write them as x's. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I want 2/3 of them. So I'm going to split this into group thirds. Okay, I want to split it into equal groups of 3. Well, here's one group of 3. Here's a second group. And here's a third group. Okay, 9 can be split into 3 even groups of 3. So if I want 2/3 of this, there's 1/3. And here is another 1/3. And here is a third 1/3 of the original 9. So if I want 2/3 of this, I'm going to take these 2/3. And how many x's are in that 2/3 bin? Well, there are 6 of them. 6 is 2/3 of 9. 6 equals 2/3 times 9. In our third example, we're now going to work with multiplying a fraction times a fraction. This means we're taking a part of another part. So there are 2 parts, right? Each of these things, in this particular case, is less than a whole. So we could think of this again as 1/2 of 2/3. Okay? Well, let's say this is my one whole. Okay? This whole thing equals 1. That's one thing. Now if I split it, this is 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. So this part here in blue is 2/3. Well, I want 1/2 of 2/3. So I want to take this blue section and I want to slice it in half. I just want half of the 2/3. Well, what's that? That's equal to 1/3. So our answer here is that 1/3 is half of 2/3. 1/3 is 1/2 times 2/3. Our fourth example says take 5/4 of 1/3. Or we could also say take 1/3 of 5/4. Okay? We are taking some part of a part. Okay? It's a little different this time because 5/4 is more than 1. So when we talk about it being a part, we mean that it's 1 and a little bit more, okay, a part of another whole. So if I have 5/4, let's see, so I need 4/4 to make up a whole. So there's 4/4, and I need another 1/4 to get me up to a total of 5. So let's say this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4. So I'm going to do all of this. That's going to get us 4/4. And I need another fourth to get me up to 5/4. So this is an additional 1/4. Okay? So between this and this, okay, those are my 5/4 of stuff. So I'm actually going to erase this. I'm going to erase this extra block over here, these extra blocks. Okay, and this represents my total 5/4, right? This is 5/4. And we need to take 1/3 of that. So I'm going to take each fourth and split it into thirds. Okay, so I know that this is evenly divisible by 3. So I'm going to take each of these 5/4. Remember, each one yellow block is a fourth. Okay, and I'm going to take each of them and I'm going to split them into thirds. So I'm going to put 2 lines down each to split them into thirds. Let's take a look at now what we've split this original 1 whole into. Remember, this square here is our 1 whole, so that's 4/4. Now we've split it into how many pieces? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've now split it into 12 pieces. Okay? We took 4/4 and split each fourth into 3, and we got 12. Okay? 4 times 3, we split it into 12 pieces. So this is now 12/12, and this piece over here is 3/12. So there are a total of 15/12. Is that the same as 5/4? Well, yes it is. Okay, we took everything, okay, and split it into 3 pieces. Every fourth and split it into 3 pieces. These are equivalent ratios. 15/12 and 5/4 are equivalent ratios. We've just split it into smaller little pieces. So how many of these did I want to take? I wanted to take 1/3 of these now 15/12. Okay? I want to take 1/3 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 1/3 of them because there are a total of 15. So 5 is 1/3 of 15. And I have 15/12. So I need 5 of these will be the 1/3 of my original 5/4. So our final answer would say that 5/4 times 1/3 equals 5/12. Remember, each of these pieces here is a 12th, and 5 of them made up 1/3 of the original 5/4. Here we have another example with an integer multiplied by a fraction. We could think of this as 3/7 of -2. We'd have to draw 2 things out and split them into sevenths. Instead, I'm going to think of this as doubling, okay, because I'm multiplying by 2. Okay, and I'll deal with the negative sign in a minute. But let's say that I have 3/7 of something. So I have a whole 1 thing, and I'm going to split it into sevenths. So if I had 3/7 of that, I would have 1, 2, 3. This is the original 3/7. Well, I want 2 of those, so I want a second set. I want another 3/7. So here's 1, 2, 3 more. So this is another 3/7, which means we have a total of how many sevenths? Well, there are 6 of them. 3 plus 3 is 6. There are 6 sevenths. In other words, we multiplied 3/7 by 2 and got 6/7 of them. Now we have to come back and talk about the negative sign. It was actually -2 times 3/7. Well, negative, remember, means opposite. A negative sign means opposite. What they're saying here is that they want to know what is the opposite of 2 times 3/7. Well, 2 times 3/7 is 6/7, so the opposite of that must be -6/7. So -6/7 equals -2 times 3/7. And our last example today is another part times a part, a fraction times a fraction. In this case, we want 3/8 of -1/2, or we could say we want -1/2 of 3/8. Those are two ways to say the same thing, because multiplication is commutative, which means we can do it 3/8 times -1/2 or -1/2 times 3/8. Either way works because of the rules of multiplication. In this case, I'm going to opt for taking 1/2 of 3/8 because I like to work with the smaller denominator as the part I will take of some other part. So we need to draw 3/8 to begin with. So here is my 1 whole. So this all equals 1. So I need to split it into 8ths so that I can have 3 of them. So 3/8 would be these 3 over here, right? You could have picked any 3, but I'm going to pick these 3. And I want half of this. I somehow want to take half of this 3/8. So I can split each piece in half, each of these original 3/8. Now, what do I have? I have 6 of something, but do I have 6/8? Okay, these green things, right? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Do I have 6/8 or do I have something else? Well, if every one of the original 8ths was split in half, there would be a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 of these. Okay, so 3/8, I just said, was the same as 6/16. That's what I did with this visual picture here. Well, if I wanted half of those, what's half of 6? Half of 6 is 3. So I want 3 of these. 1, 2, 3. So our final answer is that 3/16 is equal to 1/2 of 3/8. Now I just lied for a minute there and I said that this was our final answer, and I was incorrect because I forgot that we had a negative here. So we were talking about the opposite of -1/2. We were talking about the opposite of 1/2 of 3/8. So if we're talking about the opposite of 1/2 of times 3/8, then our answer is opposite of 3/16 or -3/16 as our final answer. Before we end this video, I'd like to take a look at a pattern in the mathematics that we were doing today, multiplying with fractions. In our first problem, we had 1/2 times 4, we got 2. Our second problem was 2/3 of 9, we found that the answer was 6. 1/2 times 2/3 was 1/3. 5/4 times 1/3 was 5/12. And -2 times 3/7 was equal to -6/7. Finally, 3/8 times -1/2 was equal to -3/16. You may have already noticed this, but if you didn't, I want to make sure that you know it now. So 1/2 times 4 can be written as 1/2 times 4 over 1, because 4 is equal to 4 divided by 1. If we multiply the numerators, we get 4, and if we multiply the denominators, we get 2. 4 over 2 is the same as 2 over 1, or just 2. In the next example, we had 2/3 times 9, which we could have written as 2/3 times 9 over 1. Multiplying the numerators together, 2 times 9 is 18. Multiplying the denominators together, 3 times 1 is 3. Well, 18/3, or 18 divided by 3, comes out to be 6. 1/2 times 2/3, multiplying the numerators together gets 2, and multiplying 2 times 3 in the denominators gets us 6. Well, 2/6 is the same as 1/3. Okay? If you need to go back and look at equivalent fractions to make sure you understand why these two things are equal, please go do that. 5/4 times 1/3. Okay? Again, we can multiply across. 5 times 1 is 5, and 4 times 3 is 12. In this case, that immediately gets us our final answer because there's nothing to simplify. 5 and 12 don't have any common factors besides the number 1, so that is the most simplified version of that fraction. -2 can be written as -2 over 1. Multiplying it by 3/7 would get -2 times 3, which is -6, 1 times 7, which is 7, and again we end up with -6/7, another fraction that doesn't need to be further simplified. Last but not least, 3 times 1 is 3 times a -1, I would consider putting that there. 3 times 1 is a -3, 8 times 2 is a +16, and we get -3/16, and there's no need to simplify because 3 and 16 have no common factors other than 1.